The grand ballroom of the Astoria Crown Hotel shimmered under the golden glow of cascading chandeliers. The air was thick with the heady scent of imported roses, the gentle clinking of champagne flutes, and a low murmur of high society conversation. Everything was perfect, exactly as Evelyn Montgomery had imagined her engagement party would be. She stood near the center of the room, her slender fingers wrapped delicately around a crystal glass of sparkling wine. Her heart fluttered with anticipation. Tonight, in front of everyone who mattered in New York's elite circles, she and her fiancé, Nathaniel Harrington, would officially announce their engagement. Nathaniel was running late. But that wasn't surprising. He was a busy man, an ambitious investment mogul and rising star in the business world. He always showed up for her eventually. He always did. Evelyn adjusted the delicate lace strap of her pale blue couture gown, casting a glance at her parents who were deep in conversation with several influential guests. They had orchestrated this union, ensuring Nathaniel was the perfect match to preserve the Montgomery legacy. She sighed quietly and took another sip of her champagne. "Where is he?" As if in answer, the grand double doors of the ballroom swung open with a dramatic creak. All eyes turned. In walked Nathaniel, but not alone. He held the hand of another woman. Evelyn's world slowed to a crawl. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire. A waiter froze mid-pour, champagne spilling unnoticed onto a linen tablecloth. Cameras from the invited press swung toward the scene, snapping photo after photo as if they'd stumbled into a scandal no one had dared dream of. Nathaniel strolled in confidently, his fingers laced with those of Clarissa Bennett, heiress to the Bennett banking empire and the daughter of Nathaniel's most important business partner. Clarissa was stunning, dressed in a form-fitting crimson gown that clung to her like molten silk. Her ruby lips curved into a smug smirk. And Nathaniel? His expression was unreadable. Cold, unbothered. Evelyn forced herself to speak. "Nathaniel." Her voice was a whisper, barely audible over the thick silence that had descended. He stopped a few feet away, looked her dead in the eyes, and, without hesitation, delivered the fatal blow. "I can't marry you." The words hung there, cruel and surgical. The entire room stilled. Evelyn's breath hitched. What are you saying?" Nathaniel exhaled, as if irritated by the inconvenience of the moment. "Let's be honest here, Evelyn. You have nothing to offer me anymore." Her stomach twisted. "I what?" "You proposed to me." He chuckled. A hollow sound. "Did I? Or was it a conversation our families arranged?" Her vision blurred. "But I thought you needed." "I needed the leverage of your family name," he said bluntly. "But now I have better options." He glanced at Clarissa, who gave him an adoring smile and squeezed his arm. "She means me," Clarissa said softly, faux sympathy dripping from every syllable. This is a joke, right?" Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. Nathaniel's gaze hardened. "I never loved you, Evelyn." His voice sliced through her like a blade. "You were just a stepping stone, and now I'm done with you." A collective gasp echoed across the room. Somewhere a glass shattered. Evelyn stood frozen, trying desperately to find a hint, any hint, that this wasn't real. But it was. Clarissa tilted her head, giving Evelyn a pitying look. "You're a sweet girl, Evelyn, but you don't belong in Nathaniel's world. You never did." The humiliation washed over her in crushing waves. 100 pairs of eyes bore into her, silently witnessing her downfall. She could hear their whispers, their pity, their judgment. And then her mother's voice cut through the fog. "Evelyn." She turned, praying her mother would defend her. Just this once. But the look on Victoria Montgomery's face wasn't one of concern. It was disgust. "You've humiliated us," Victoria hissed, her tone like frostbite. "If you can't secure a husband with wealth and power, you're no longer a daughter of mine." Evelyn staggered back as her mother turned her back on her. The woman who had birthed her, raised her, trained her for this very life, was leaving her to stand alone in a room full of vultures. Her world had ended. Part 2. Lost and Found. The streets of Manhattan were cruel and cold that night, and Evelyn wandered them like a ghost in a world she no longer belonged to. Her heels clicked rhythmically against the cracked sidewalks, the sound hollow and mocking. Her once perfect gown now felt alien, like a costume she had no right to wear. The diamond engagement ring that had graced her hand only hours ago was gone, left behind on the marble ballroom floor. She had no fiancé, no family, no future. She didn't know how long she walked before she found herself in front of a dimly lit bar, tucked between two run-down buildings on a street she never would have dared enter before. But tonight, nothing mattered. Inside, the bar was quiet, nearly empty. She slid onto a cracked leather stool, drawing looks from the bartender, but no questions. "Whiskey," she muttered. "Neat." The bartender raised a brow, but said nothing, pouring her a generous measure. She winced as the burn hit her throat, but she welcomed the pain. It matched the hollow ache in her chest. "You don't seem like the whiskey type," a deep voice said from her left. She turned, slowly, and found herself staring at a man. He wasn't like anyone she was used to. No designer suit, no gold watch. He wore a plain black jacket over a faded gray t-shirt. His dark hair was messy, his stubble shadowing a strong jawline. But his eyes were something else. Dark, sharp, unreadable. "Maybe I wasn't," she replied. "But people change." He nodded, studying her. "Rough night. You could say that." And for some reason, maybe because he was a stranger, maybe because the whiskey had dulled her defenses, Evelyn told him everything. The engagement, the betrayal, the cold rejection of her mother. He listened, silent and attentive. And when she finished, he leaned in with a shrug. "You need a husband?" he asked casually. "I'm available." She laughed. Really laughed. "You?" she teased, her eyes glimmering with a hint of wildness. "You want to marry me?" He smirked. "Why not? You need a husband. I've got nothing better to do." It was crazy, insane. And yet, it was the first time in years she felt like she was making a choice of her own. She raised her glass. "All right, stranger. Let's get married." Part 3. Stranger, Husband, Mystery. Evelyn woke with a headache the next morning, her surroundings painfully unfamiliar. The bed was lumpy. The sheets smelled like detergent from a budget store. And there, on her finger, was a simple silver band. Her stomach dropped. She turned slowly and saw him. The stranger from the bar. Liam. He was sprawled on the couch, shirtless, one arm over his head. Peaceful. What had she done? The days that followed were strange. Liam was patient, surprisingly thoughtful. He cooked. He laughed at her complaints. He reminded her to budget at the grocery store and teased her when she reached for things she could no longer afford. "You're not a Montgomery anymore, princess," he said one day, swapping out an expensive bottle of water for a cheap plastic one. "Welcome to the real world." It was humiliating. It was maddening, but was also freeing. No more expectations. No more judgment. And Liam, he was nothing like the men she had known. When she burned dinner, he ordered pizza. When she tripped on loose floorboards, he caught her. When she sat in the dark during a power outage, he wrapped her in a blanket and just sat with her. No pity, no condescension, just understanding. But something about Liam didn't add up. The way he spoke about wine. Cars. The stack of cash she found hidden in a drawer. And then came the truth. Liam Alexander Sterling. Not just Liam. The missing heir to the Sterling fortune. The man who had disappeared 3 years ago after walking away from his empire. And now, he was her husband. Part 4. Truth and Love. When Evelyn confronted him, he didn't deny it. "I needed to know someone could love me for me," he said simply. "Not for what I had." And in that moment, she understood. All the years she had spent chasing status, power, wealth, it had never been real. But this? Him? This was real. When Liam dropped to one knee and asked her, truly asked her, to be his wife, her answer was easy. Yes. Part 5. Legacy. Years later, Evelyn stood beside Liam at the Sterling Foundation Gala. Their foundation helped women who had lost everything find hope again, because she had been one of them. And when she faced Nathaniel and Clarissa again, watching them struggle to stay relevant, she realized she didn't hate them. They had given her the chance to find what truly mattered. As she stood there with her husband and their children, watching the sunset on their private beach, she whispered the words that had changed everything. "You were the best decision I ever made." And so, Evelyn's greatest heartbreak led to her greatest blessing. Proof that love, trust, and second chances are the greatest riches of all.